The galaxy was a vast, unforgiving place, ruled by powerful alien empires, each more formidable than the last. Among them, the Zarvans stood at the top, feared by countless civilizations. They controlled entire star systems, their fleets moving like shadows across the universe, leaving destruction in their wake. The Zarvans had conquered countless planets, and they saw themselves as the ultimate authority in the cosmos. Nothing could challenge their power, or so they believed. On their home planet, Lord Calthor, the supreme leader of the Zarvan Empire, sat in the War Council chamber, overlooking a holographic map of their latest conquest. His fingers lightly touched the glowing display, tracing the paths of their expanding empire. A satisfied grin stretched across his face as he watched the galaxy bend to his will. "You see, my warriors," Calthor's voice echoed through the room. "The universe is ours. No species can stand against the might of the Zarvans. We have crushed every resistance, and now, Earth is next." His second-in-command, General Thrax, stood beside him, watching the data feed on the screen. Earth, this tiny, insignificant blue planet, was the next target on their list. The Zarvans had heard of Earth before, but they had dismissed it as a weak, undeveloped world, home to primitive creatures. They believed it would be an easy conquest, no different from any of the countless others they had already crushed. "The humans are nothing more than a distraction," General Thrax remarked, his voice filled with disdain. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. We could obliterate them with a flick of our wrist." Lord Calthor chuckled. "Indeed, their primitive nature amuses me. They believe they are important, but they are no more than insects. We will destroy them, and no one will remember their name." The Zarvans had already launched their fleet towards Earth. Massive dreadnoughts, armed with devastating weaponry, loomed like shadows in the vastness of space. These ships were capable of wiping out entire civilizations in a single strike, and they were ready to show Earth just how helpless it truly was. Meanwhile, back on Earth, things were different. The humans had no idea of the impending threat. Life went on as usual, with people going about their daily routines, unaware that an empire of terrifying power was heading straight for them. The world's governments were focused on their own struggles, unaware of the cosmic danger that loomed just beyond their atmosphere. But there were a few individuals who were starting to see the signs. Dr. Evelyn Carter, a scientist and researcher in advanced technologies, had been studying patterns in space, trying to detect any anomalies. For weeks, she had noticed strange readings coming from a distant part of the galaxy. These readings weren't from any known sources. Something was out there, something powerful. It was late one evening when she finally confirmed her suspicions. The data was undeniable. Earth was on a collision course with disaster. But what could they do? The human race had barely developed enough to send people to Mars, let alone defend against an entire alien armada. Dr. Carter's heart raced as she analyzed the information. She immediately sent a message to the highest authorities, but they were slow to act. Earth had faced threats before, but nothing on this scale. There was no protocol for an invasion of this magnitude. Her warnings went largely ignored. After all, who would believe that a small primitive species like humanity could be a target for the mighty Zarvans? Back on the Zarvan ships, Lord Calthor's fleet continued its course, approaching Earth with unmatched speed. The alien warriors aboard his ships prepared for the invasion, their battle stations ready for the final assault. To them, it was just another conquest, just another insignificant world to bring under their control. They had done it so many times before. As the fleet drew closer to Earth, the Zarvans sent a communication to the planet's leaders, a message designed to intimidate. The transmission was brief but cold, filled with the arrogance that only an empire like the Zarvans could afford. "Humans of Earth," the message began. "This is Lord Calthor of the Zarvan Empire. We have come to claim your world. You are weak, and your planet is of no value to us, but it shall serve as a stepping stone to our greater conquests. Surrender now, and we will allow you to live under our rule. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Your time has come." The transmission ended, and silence filled the council chambers of Earth's leaders. A feeling of dread spread quickly through the room. They had never seen such power, such arrogance. The humans had no idea how to respond. They had no defense against the might of the Zarvans, and no one could even begin to imagine the scale of the destruction that was about to unfold. Lord Calthor, watching from his command ship, smiled cruelly. "Let them think they have a chance. It will be their last mistake." As the countdown to invasion began, Earth's fate seemed sealed. The Zarvans would crush them without hesitation, just as they had crushed every other civilization in their path. The humans were no more than an afterthought in the grand scheme of the universe. But little did Lord Calthor know, Earth was hiding something. A secret, buried deep beneath its surface, waiting to be uncovered. And this secret, once discovered, would change everything. For the first time in the history of the Zarvan Empire, they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The Zarvans had underestimated Earth. That much was certain. The moment their message had been sent, they had expected humanity to cower in fear, pleading for mercy. After all, who could stand against their fleet, who had obliterated entire civilizations? Who could stand against the might of the Zarvan Empire, with its advanced technology and superior weaponry? Yet as they prepared to launch their final assault, something entirely unexpected was happening on Earth. Dr. Evelyn Carter, who had been one of the first to recognize the threat, was no longer alone in her pursuit of answers. Once the message from Lord Calthor had reached Earth's leaders, panic had spread quickly. Governments around the world were scrambling to figure out what to do, but there was one thing they had not anticipated. Humanity had a secret weapon. The human race, for all its flaws and imperfections, had one thing that no other species could rival: ingenuity. The world's greatest minds, working together, had spent years developing a project so secretive, so highly classified, that only a select few knew of its existence. It was known by a simple name: Project Titan. Dr. Carter had been brought in to work on Project Titan years ago, though even she did not know its full scope. She had only seen fragments, only glimpses of the power that lay hidden beneath the surface of the project. Now, as she watched the data streams flooding in from the approaching Zarvan fleet, the pieces began to fall into place. Project Titan wasn't just a weapon. It was humanity's last hope. Meanwhile, in the deep underground bunkers beneath Earth's most secure facilities, the final stages of Project Titan were being completed. The technology was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It combined the latest advancements in quantum physics, artificial intelligence, and ancient combat strategies. It was a ship, a massive warship, designed to be humanity's ultimate response to any threat, no matter how overwhelming. Unlike the bulky, slow-moving dreadnoughts of the Zarvans, Project Titan was sleek, fast, and deceptively powerful. Its hull was made of a special alloy that could withstand even the harshest of cosmic forces. Its weapons were unlike anything the Zarvans had ever encountered, capable of unleashing destructive energy at a level that could rival even the mighty ships of the alien fleet. However, there was something even more extraordinary about Project Titan. It was not just a ship. It was a symbol, a representation of humanity's unyielding spirit. The ship's core was powered by something entirely unique: the combined energy of human willpower, determination, and the undying hope that they could overcome any challenge, no matter the odds. On the eve of the Zarvan invasion, as Earth's government scrambled to mobilize their defenses, Dr. Carter stood in the war room, staring at the holographic display in front of her. The countdown to the Zarvan fleet's arrival was ticking away, each second bringing them closer to Earth's destruction. The room was filled with military leaders and scientists, but all eyes were on Dr. Carter. She had been the one to see the warning signs, the one who had pieced together the puzzle. Now she was the one leading them to their last hope. "It's ready," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "Project Titan is operational. It's the only chance we have to survive." General Malcolm Hayes, a grizzled veteran of countless wars, turned to her, his face a mixture of disbelief and skepticism. "You're telling me that this ship is the key to stopping the Zarvans?" Dr. Carter nodded. "It's more than just a ship. It's a symbol of everything humanity has fought for. The Zarvans believe they can crush us, that they can take our planet without a second thought. But they're wrong. We've been preparing for this moment for years. Project Titan is our final stand." General Hayes looked out the window at the stars, his mind racing. He had seen his fair share of battles, but nothing like this. The threat the Zarvans posed was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. Yet there was something in Dr. Carter's voice, something in her eyes, that made him believe. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had a chance. "This is it, then," General Hayes said, turning back to Dr. Carter. "What do we do?" "We deploy Project Titan," she replied, her tone unwavering. "We show the Zarvans that humanity will never bow to anyone. We fight back." Across the globe, the final preparations were underway. The fleets of Earth's nations had gathered together, ready to face the alien armada. But it was Project Titan, the one weapon the Zarvans had never anticipated, that would change the course of the war. As the Zarvan fleet drew closer, the humans activated the ship, powering up its core. The energy it generated was unlike anything the universe had ever seen, an immense, pulsating force that filled the room with a powerful hum. The ship's weapon systems came online, and it began to move, silently and swiftly, toward the awaiting enemy. Lord Calthor and his fleet watched from afar as Earth's defense systems activated, but they were not worried. They had seen the primitive defenses of Earth before, easily brushing them aside. Nothing on Earth could threaten their fleet. They were the Zarvans, and their empire was unstoppable. But what they didn't know, what they could never have prepared for, was the hidden power of humanity, the strength that had been lying dormant all along, the power of hope, of survival, of fighting for something greater than oneself. And now, that power was about to be unleashed in a way they could never have imagined. As the countdown to the Zarvan fleet's arrival dwindled to mere minutes, a thick silence fell over the war room. General Hayes and Dr. Carter stood side by side, staring at the holographic map in front of them. Every possible trajectory, every defensive maneuver had been calculated, but now it was up to Project Titan, Earth's last line of defense. Outside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The skies above were painted with the glow of the approaching alien armada, a sprawling collection of dark ships gliding silently through space. Their immense size and sleek design sent a chill through anyone who dared to look up. In the depths of the military facilities, Project Titan hummed with life. Its engines roared to life, the ship's colossal size dwarfing everything around it. The vessel was the ultimate culmination of human effort, and it was humanity's hope, charging forward into the unknown. Dr. Carter stood at the command center, her hand trembling slightly as she watched the approaching fleet. Her eyes never left the screen. She had never been more uncertain, yet more certain in her life. This was no longer about just one ship, one mission. It was a battle for survival, a chance to prove that humanity was more than just a footnote in the galaxy. "Deploy the Titan," she said softly but firmly. General Hayes gave a small nod, signaling the fleet's commanders to release the ship. Earth's defense forces had been mobilized, but everyone knew that this would be their first true test, their first encounter with the enemy. As Project Titan emerged from the underground facility, the ground shook beneath their feet, the roar of its engines filling the air like a massive thunderclap. As Titan broke through the clouds, the view from space revealed its vast form, an intimidating sight, with its surface gleaming in the sun and its weapons systems primed and ready. There was no turning back now. Humanity's fate was tied to the ship that had been built with both technology and willpower. Back in space, the Zarvans continued their march, confident and arrogant. They hadn't expected resistance. They hadn't expected Earth to be anything more than an easy target. Lord Calthor, aboard the flagship Velarex, stared down at the planet below, a smug grin on his face. His fleet was unmatched, and this was merely the final step in the expansion of the Zarvan Empire. Their previous encounters with Earth had been laughable. Human forces had been weak, their technology outdated. But now, as they approached Earth, the thought of facing humanity's combined forces seemed trivial. Until something appeared. A ship, so massive it eclipsed the stars behind it, emerged from Earth's atmosphere. Project Titan. For a moment, there was only silence in the Zarvan Command Center. The crew aboard the Velarex stared in disbelief. Lord Calthor blinked, narrowing his eyes at the strange craft. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, but most importantly, he did not understand how it had come to be. Where did this come from? Calthor barked, his voice filled with anger. What is that ship? A subordinate, visibly shaken, tapped the controls frantically. It's human-made, sir. It's the ship they've been building for years, Project Titan. For the first time since their invasion of Earth had begun, a ripple of uncertainty spread through the Zarvan fleet. Focus fire on it, Calthor ordered, his voice a tight command. Crush it before it becomes a threat. As the Zarvan ships shifted into battle formation, dozens of energy blasts and missiles began to streak toward Project Titan. The sheer volume of weapons being launched was enough to shake anyone's nerves, but the ship's surface remained intact. Project Titan's hull absorbed the blasts as if it were nothing more than a mild annoyance. The ship's powerful energy shields flickered for a moment but quickly recovered. Inside Titan, Dr. Carter watched as the ship's weapon systems came online. With a cold but determined look, she turned to the crew around her. Activate all weapons. We're not just defending Earth, we're sending a message. Outside, Project Titan moved forward, cutting through space with startling speed. Its massive turrets began to power up, each one capable of firing destructive beams of concentrated energy. With a single command, Dr. Carter initiated the first offensive strike. A beam of energy shot out, striking one of the lead Zarvan ships. The explosion that followed was enough to send shockwaves through the surrounding fleet. The alien ship was obliterated in an instant, its once pristine surface now a smoldering wreck. Lord Calthor's eyes widened in shock and fury. He had not expected such power. His fleet, so vast and formidable, had just been dealt a catastrophic blow by a single shot from this unexpected human weapon. Retreat. Fall back. Calthor barked, but his orders were drowned out by the chaos on the deck. The remaining Zarvan ships scrambled to evade Project Titan's strikes. But it was too late. Humanity's weapon had proven its worth in a single strike. Titan continued its relentless assault, firing blast after blast at the alien ships. Each shot sent shockwaves through space, and with every passing second, the Zarvan fleet was losing more ships. The human ships' unmatched speed and precision left the Zarvans unable to regroup. Earth was fighting back, and humanity was proving they were not to be underestimated. But as the last of the alien ships fell into disarray, Calthor's voice rang out, now cold and calculating. "This isn't over," he growled, his eyes burning with fury. "This is just the beginning." The battle for Earth had only just begun, and with it, the struggle for humanity's survival was far from finished. Yet, as Project Titan cut through the Zarvan forces like a blade through paper, one thing became clear. Humanity had a power they could not ignore. And the Zarvans would learn that the hard way. The battle had taken a turn that no one could have predicted. Humanity's Project Titan, a symbol of Earth's indomitable will, had struck the invaders with a force they had never seen before. The once feared Zarvan fleet, which had come to Earth with nothing but arrogance and contempt for the human race, was now retreating in disarray. But the war was far from over. On the flagship Velarex, Lord Calthor was seething. His normally unshakable confidence had crumbled, replaced by a burning hatred for the humans who had dared to defy him. His fleet, the pride of the Zarvan Empire, was in tatters. The once mighty warships had been reduced to burning husks by a single human vessel. "Report." Calthor's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. His officers scrambled to relay information, But the truth was unavoidable. The human ship had already decimated a third of their fleet in just the first round of combat. "Sir, the human ship. It's unlike anything we've encountered before," a shaken officer reported. "Our weapons are ineffective against its shields. We can't stop it." Calthor slammed his fist down onto the console in front of him. He had underestimated the humans, an error that would cost him dearly. "What of the reinforcements?" he demanded. "Where is the second wave?" "They're on their way, but it will take time," the officer replied, his voice trembling. Calthor's mind raced as he paced back and forth. Earth's defense forces had revealed their trump card, but Calthor knew that the battle was far from over. The humans had won one skirmish, but the war was still in the balance. The entire Zarvan Empire could not be toppled by one ship, no matter how powerful it was. He would see humanity broken, just as he had done with every other world he had conquered. "Prepare to launch the second wave," Calthor ordered, "and send a message to the Empire. Earth will fall, one way or another." Meanwhile, on Earth, the exhilaration from the first victory was palpable. Project Titan had struck a devastating blow against the Zarvan fleet, but it was only the beginning. The victory, however, did little to quell the rising tension among Earth's military leaders. They knew the true test was yet to come. General Hayes and Dr. Carter were in the command center, observing the aftermath of the battle. The data streams were filled with alarming reports of damaged ships and casualties, but nothing too devastating. Humanity had won. For now. "Dr. Carter, we've done it," Hayes said, turning to the scientist, his voice filled with disbelief. "We've actually done it. They've never seen anything like this before." Dr. Carter's gaze was fixed on the holographic display of the galaxy. Her mind, though, was already on the next move. She wasn't celebrating. She was preparing for what came next. "This isn't over, General," she said, her voice low but filled with purpose. "This victory won't last. The Zarvans will return with everything they have." Hayes frowned, not wanting to acknowledge her words. "You think they'll regroup, after what we just did to them?" "They'll regroup," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady and calm. "But they won't just come back with more ships. They'll come back with something much more dangerous." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. The silence that followed was heavy. For all their technological advances, humanity was still fragile. They had one ship, a powerful one, but only one. If the Zarvans were to return in full force, humanity would be facing an entirely new level of destruction. "We need to prepare for their next wave," she continued, "and we need to be ready to hit them harder than before." Back in space, Lord Calthor watched the Earth from the safety of his flagship, his rage only growing stronger with each passing moment. His fleet was decimated, but his mind was already set on revenge. The humans had made a mistake, thinking they had won. Calthor's plan had always been simple: conquer, control, and destroy. Now, however, there was a new complication. He would need more than brute force to defeat humanity. He would need to break their spirits. And to do that, he would target what they loved most, their home. He turned to his communications officer. "Prepare the annihilator," he commanded. "It's time to show Earth just how fragile their victory really is." The officer quickly moved to execute the orders. "But, sir, the annihilator isn't ready for combat. The power systems are unstable." "I don't care," Calthor snapped. "The humans need to see that they cannot stand against the might of the Zarvan Empire. Launch it now." On Earth, the clock was ticking. Humanity's brief moment of victory was quickly becoming overshadowed by the looming threat of a much larger attack. General Hayes and Dr. Carter continued their preparations for the worst-case scenario, but no one could have predicted what was coming. As Project Titan sat in orbit, its crew working tirelessly to prepare for the next engagement, Dr. Carter felt a strange chill run down her spine. She stared at the monitor, watching the distant stars twinkle. There was something wrong. The Zarvans were not just regrouping. They were planning something much worse. And then it came. A massive explosion ripped through space, an enormous shockwave that sent ripples across the entire planet. The communication systems flickered, and the skies above Earth darkened. People stared up in confusion, unsure of what they were seeing. The annihilator had arrived. The first wave of destruction had begun. The planet trembled as the shockwave from the annihilator hit, the Earth's atmosphere crackling with energy. It was unlike anything anyone had seen before. The blast stretched across the sky, causing earthquakes, massive tidal waves, and storms that seemed to have no end. The sheer force of the annihilator shook the very foundation of Earth's defenses. At the command center, General Hayes was barely holding his composure. The holographic screens before him flickered as reports of devastation flooded in. Entire cities had been obliterated by the blast. The annihilator's power was overwhelming, far beyond what humanity could have ever imagined. They had won a battle, but this was the beginning of their darkest hour. We need to launch everything we have. General Hayes barked to the officers around him, his voice steady despite the chaos. Get me Project Titan. Now. Dr. Carter, standing beside him, was deep in thought. She knew they couldn't win this battle by sheer force alone. They needed something more. The annihilator wasn't just a weapon. It was a declaration of war, and the Zarvans were showing no mercy. We don't have time, Dr. Carter said, her voice quiet but urgent. We need to think fast. Our fleet won't be able to handle another direct hit. We need a counterattack, and we need it now. A junior officer approached with an urgent message. General, we've just received communication from Project Titan. The ship is ready, but it needs more time to power up. It's our only chance. Sir. Hayes stared at the officer, frustration written all over his face. Time was something they didn't have. The destruction was spreading faster than they could react. The enemy wasn't just here to conquer. They were here to break humanity's spirit. They needed to strike back, and fast. Suddenly, Dr. Carter's eyes widened as an idea struck her. General, she said, almost urgently, the annihilator isn't just a weapon. It's a message. They want us to know they're unbeatable, to break us mentally before they break us physically. But we have something they don't. A weapon they can't predict. A weapon that can turn the tide. General Hayes looked at her, waiting for her to continue. We've built something, haven't we? Something beyond just Project Titan. We need to activate it now. Hayes paused, his mind racing through the possibilities. He remembered the classified project they had worked on in secret, something so far ahead of its time that it seemed like science fiction. It was humanity's last card. If they didn't play it now, they might never get the chance. Activate the Vanguard, Hayes ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. It's time to unleash humanity's true power. At the launch bay, technicians scrambled to initiate the Vanguard protocol. The Vanguard was humanity's ultimate defense, an advanced weaponized satellite system, capable of disrupting even the most advanced alien technology. Built using quantum mechanics, it had been kept under wraps for years, known only to a select few. Now, it was their only hope. Dr. Carter was there, overseeing the activation process. She watched as the final commands were given, and the system powered up. A massive surge of energy began to gather in the core of the Vanguard, sending pulses of electromagnetic waves across the galaxy. It was humanity's answer to the annihilator, the first true counterweapon. But even as the Vanguard came online, something felt wrong. A deep, unsettling silence filled the room, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The Zarvans had struck with a weapon of unimaginable power. Could humanity truly stand a chance against them? In the vastness of space, Lord Calthor stood aboard the Velarex, overseeing the devastation his fleet had caused. He watched Earth burn, knowing it was just the beginning. He had crushed other worlds with ease, but Earth was proving more resilient than he had anticipated. The humans were proving harder to break, and it was beginning to frustrate him. "We have to strike again," Calthor muttered to himself, pacing in the darkened command room. "We must erase the hope that they still have." The silence in the room was broken by an officer's voice. "Lord Calthor, we are detecting unusual energy surges from Earth. Something has activated. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Calthor turned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, unusual? What's happening?" The energy from the Vanguard and the Annihilator continued to collide, their forces meeting in the vast expanse of space with an intensity that could be felt on Earth itself. The stars flickered as if even the universe was unsure which side would triumph. The two opposing waves of energy battled for dominance, each one pushing the other back, testing the limits of their respective power. Inside the command center, General Hayes watched the screen in front of him, his face a mask of concentration. Sweat trickled down his temple as he saw the fluctuating power readings from the Vanguard. "Hold steady," Dr. Carter muttered beside him. She was watching the readouts, her hands moving rapidly over the control panels, making final adjustments to ensure the Vanguard kept firing at full power. "We've never done anything like this before," she added, though her voice was steady, betraying no fear. "If the Annihilator's beam breaks through, it could take out everything we've worked for." General Hayes nodded, his eyes still locked on the holographic display of the battlefield in space. They had no more reinforcements left. No backup fleets. This was it, the final play. Humanity had placed its last bet. In space, the battle raged on. The Zarvan fleet had been momentarily stunned by the energy pulse from the Vanguard, but they quickly recovered. Lord Calthor was furious. He had not expected this level of resistance. He had expected Earth to crumble under the sheer might of the Annihilator. "Launch the secondary attack," Calthor commanded, his voice cold and filled with hatred. "It's time to crush these insignificant humans once and for all." The fleet responded immediately, releasing a barrage of missiles aimed at Earth. They were equipped with advanced targeting systems designed to evade any form of defensive technology. Calthor believed this would be the final blow. But the humans were ready. General Hayes' voice came through the loudspeaker, sharp and clear. "All units, engage. Fire at will." Earth's defenses had been prepared for this moment. Anti-missile defense systems fired up, sending blasts of light into the sky as they intercepted the incoming missiles. Each missile was destroyed before it could reach the surface, but the cost was steep. The explosions from the intercepted projectiles rocked the planet, causing tremors that spread across continents. As the final missile was shot down, there was a brief moment of silence. The tension was unbearable. Could humanity really pull this off? Would the Vanguard hold up against the alien might? Then, without warning, the Vanguard fired again. This time, it wasn't just a beam. It was an entire pulse of energy, stretching out across space, crackling with power. The energy wave collided with the Annihilator, the two forces clashing again. But this time, something was different. The Annihilator flickered, its energy fluctuating as if it were fighting against an unstoppable force. Dr. Carter gasped. "It's working. We're overpowering them." The energy pulse from the Vanguard was unlike anything the Zarvans had ever encountered. They had never faced a weapon that could disrupt their advanced systems so thoroughly. The Annihilator was shaking, its destructive power weakening. General Hayes allowed himself a small smile, but it didn't last long. "Keep pushing. We can't stop now." Back aboard the Velorex, Lord Calthor watched in shock as his prized Annihilator began to falter. It had never happened before. No enemy had ever come close to breaking through its power. He could feel the shift in the battle, and it was unsettling. "Report," Calthor demanded, his voice rising in anger. "Why isn't it working? What's happening to the Annihilator?" "We have to strike again," Calthor muttered to himself, pacing in the darkened command room. "We must erase the hope that they still have." The silence in the room was broken by an officer's voice. "Lord Calthor, We are detecting unusual energy surges from Earth. Something has activated. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Calthor turned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, unusual? What's happening?" The energy from the Vanguard and the Annihilator continued to collide, their forces meeting in the vast expanse of space with an intensity that could be felt on Earth itself. The stars flickered as if even the universe was unsure which side would triumph. The two opposing waves of energy battled for dominance, each one pushing the other back, testing the limits of their respective power. Inside the command center, General Hayes watched the screen in front of him, his face a mask of concentration. Sweat trickled down his temple as he saw the fluctuating power readings from the Vanguard. "Hold steady," Dr. Carter muttered beside him. She was watching the readouts, her hands moving rapidly over the control panels, making final adjustments to ensure the Vanguard kept firing at full power. "We've never done anything like this before," she added, though her voice was steady, betraying no fear. "If the Annihilator's beam breaks through, it could take out everything we've worked for." General Hayes nodded, his eyes still locked on the holographic display of the battlefield in space. They had no more reinforcements left. No backup fleets. This was it, the final play. Humanity had placed its last bet. In space, the battle raged on. The Zarvan fleet had been momentarily stunned by the energy pulse from the Vanguard, but they quickly recovered. Lord Calthor was furious. He had not expected this level of resistance. He had expected Earth to crumble under the sheer might of the Annihilator. "Launch the secondary attack," Calthor commanded, his voice cold and filled with hatred. "It's time to crush these insignificant humans once and for all." The fleet responded immediately, releasing a barrage of missiles aimed at Earth. They were equipped with advanced targeting systems designed to evade any form of defensive technology. Calthor believed this would be the final blow. But the humans were ready. General Hayes' voice came through the loudspeaker, sharp and clear. "All units, engage. Fire at will." Earth's defenses had been prepared for this moment. Anti-missile defense systems fired up, sending blasts of light into the sky as they intercepted the incoming missiles. Each missile was destroyed before it could reach the surface, but the cost was steep. The explosions from the intercepted projectiles rocked the planet, causing tremors that spread across continents. As the final missile was shot down, there was a brief moment of silence. The tension was unbearable. Could humanity really pull this off? Would the Vanguard hold up against the alien might? Then, without warning, the Vanguard fired again. This time, it wasn't just a beam. It was an entire pulse of energy, stretching out across space, crackling with power. The energy wave collided with the Annihilator, the two forces clashing again. But this time, something was different. The Annihilator flickered, its energy fluctuating as if it were fighting against an unstoppable force. Dr. Carter gasped. "It's working. We're overpowering them." The energy pulse from the Vanguard was unlike anything the Zarvans had ever encountered. They had never faced a weapon that could disrupt their advanced systems so thoroughly. The Annihilator was shaking, its destructive power weakening. General Hayes allowed himself a small smile, but it didn't last long. "Keep pushing. We can't stop now." Back aboard the Velorex, Lord Calthor watched in shock as his prized Annihilator began to falter. It had never happened before. No enemy had ever come close to breaking through its power. He could feel the shift in the battle, and it was unsettling. "Report," Calthor demanded, his voice rising in anger. "Why isn't it working? What's happening to the Annihilator?" "Brace for impact," General Hayes shouted as the first wave of Zarvan energy streaked toward Earth. In the moments that followed, Earth's defenses lit up, firing defensive pulses of energy into the sky. It was a sight unlike any the universe had ever seen. Humanity's forces had never looked stronger. The defense system, built using Earth's own technology, absorbed the first wave of attacks with impressive force. The explosion of energy shook the command center, rattling the very bones of Earth's cities. Yet humanity's defense held. But this was only the beginning. The Zarvans, undeterred, launched wave after wave of their deadly projectiles, each one more powerful than the last. Inside the command center, Dr. Carter worked furiously at the control panel. Her fingers flew over the buttons, and the hum of Earth's weaponry filled the room. She was tired, exhausted from the never-ending battle, but she knew they had one last chance. "General, if we can overload the main weapon on the Velorex, we might be able to turn the tide," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Do it," Hayes replied without hesitation. Dr. Carter quickly typed in the sequence that would allow them to disrupt the Zarvan's main weapon. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot they had left. The Vanguard systems flared as it prepared to strike one final blow. The Vanguard locked onto the Velorex, preparing its energy surge. The massive weapon on the Velorex continued to charge, but as it did, it began to flicker, its power wavering. The humans' final strike was incoming. In space, the two ships stood at opposite ends of the battlefield, but everything hinged on one last move. Now, General Hayes barked as the Vanguard released a torrent of energy toward the Velorex. It was a shot of such power that it seemed to illuminate the very fabric of space. The energy collided with the Zarvan ship, cracking through its shields and blasting through the hull. The Velorex groaned, its systems flickering as its defenses failed. The mighty ship, once a symbol of the Zarvan Empire's unstoppable power, was crumbling before humanity's might. Calthor's eyes widened in disbelief. His flagship was failing. He had no time to react before the humans' final strike came crashing down. As the Velorex exploded in a brilliant burst of energy, the remaining Zarvan ships began to retreat. Their morale was broken. Earth had won. Humanity had done the impossible. General Hayes let out a sigh of relief as the final waves of the battle faded into silence. The screen in front of him displayed the retreating Zarvan fleet, their forces scattered and broken. "We did it," Dr. Carter whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Yes," Hayes replied, turning to face his crew. "Humanity didn't just survive. We fought back. And we won." Back in the heart of Earth's command center, the men and women who had fought through countless battles stood together in silence, their victory solidified. They had protected their home, and more importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. As they looked out over the battlefield, they knew this was only the beginning. Earth had proven that no one could conquer them, not the Zarvans, not anyone. Humanity was no longer just a footnote in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. The officer who had been monitoring the system looked pale. "My lord, it appears that the humans have somehow disrupted the Annihilator's energy. Our systems are failing. We cannot maintain power to the main cannon." Calthor clenched his fists in fury. He had underestimated the humans. He had laughed at them, mocked them, and now they were proving him wrong. They had turned the tide. He could feel his control slipping away, and with it, the weight of his pride. "Deploy all remaining forces," he ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "We will not let these filthy humans win." On Earth, the Vanguard continued its relentless assault. Its pulses of energy were now steady, pushing the Annihilator back inch by inch. The Zarvans, so used to crushing their enemies, were now on the defensive. The humans had caught them off guard, and now they were paying the price. "General," Dr. Carter said, a hint of disbelief in her voice, "we've done it. The Annihilator is down." A cheer broke out across the command center, but General Hayes remained focused. He knew the battle wasn't over. The Zarvan fleet still remained a threat, and they were regrouping. Humanity had won the first round, but the war was far from over. "We've won the battle, but the war isn't over," he said, his voice steady. "Get the fleet ready. We need to finish this once and for all." In space, the Vanguard's pulse had driven the Annihilator to the brink of destruction. The Zarvans were scrambling to repair their systems, but it was clear that the humans had gained the upper hand. Lord Calthor knew he had lost his advantage. For the first time in the history of the Zarvan Empire, they were on the back foot. The humans had proven they were not to be underestimated. Back on Earth, General Hayes stood at the command center, watching the screens. The humans had fought back, and they had done so with ingenuity, bravery, and sheer willpower. They had faced the impossible and stood their ground. "This is just the beginning," he said, determination in his voice. "We've shown them that Earth isn't just a target. We're a force to be reckoned with." The stars flickered in the distance as both sides prepared for the final showdown. The Vanguard stood strong, its shields pulsating with energy. The rest of Earth's fleet, though battered, was ready for whatever came next. They had survived the initial assault, and now they were prepared to strike back with everything they had. The Zarvan fleet, though weakened by the destruction of the Annihilator, still commanded a formidable presence. Their ships were massive, their weapons powerful, but their morale had been shattered. They were no longer the confident, relentless invaders they once were. The humiliation of facing Earth's might was something they would not easily forget. Lord Calthor stood at the helm of the Velarex, his face twisted in frustration and rage. The humans had crossed a line, and he would ensure they paid the price. "We have underestimated them long enough," Calthor muttered, his eyes narrowing as he watched Earth's fleet spread out across the horizon. "Prepare the secondary weapon systems. We will wipe them out in one swift strike." His command was met with a wave of acknowledgement. The Zarvans were preparing for their final attack, but Calthor could feel the anxiety building in his chest. This was no longer a battle of sheer force. It was a battle of wills. The humans had something the Zarvans had not anticipated. They fought not just for survival, but for everything they had built, everything they loved. Back on Earth, General Hayes paced nervously in the command center, his eyes glued to the monitors. He had a sense of dread building in him. This was it, the final battle. There would be no more chances after this. Either they defeated the Zarvans once and for all, or humanity would face extinction. "All ships, ready yourselves," General Hayes commanded. "This is the moment we've all been fighting for. We must show the Zarvans what humanity is capable of." His voice was calm, but there was a fire behind it, one that drove his every word, every decision. The humans had fought this hard. They couldn't afford to lose now. In the depths of space, the two forces locked eyes across the void. The Zarvans, confident in their power, and the humans, driven by their unyielding desire to protect their home. The tension in the air was palpable. Lord Calthor gave the order to launch the final assault. A wave of energy poured from the Velarex, aiming directly at Earth. It was a devastating weapon, one that could reduce entire cities to ashes in an instant. The weapon was Earth's last great challenge. But the humans were ready.